Who am I? You sure you want to know? If somebody told you I was just your average, ordinary guy, not a care in the world, somebody lied. Truth is, it wasn't always like this. There was a time when life was a lot less complicated. Can I take your picture for the school paper?
Sure. In this
Welcome to the Marvel Cinematic University. I'm your professor, Mario Rivera, and joining me is the marvelous doctoral student, Cyclone MC, who has a bachelor's in the MCU, a master's in the multiverse, and is going for their dissertation in Marvel studies. Sly, how are you doing?
I am doing great. I am so excited to be here with you today talking about Spider-Man 2002. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Do we have a lot to say about this?
Not only do we have a lot to say about this is the pinnacle of the reason why I picked the classes, and we'll get to that once we get to that. But yes, I'm so very, very excited to talk Spider-Man with you, which of course is the movie that we're talking today. Of course, the 2002 Spider-Man film. We're going to be entering our history class as we enter Earth 96283, which of course is Spider-Man 2002, directed by Sam Raimi, written by David Coep, who has written some of the best movies in my lifetime, which is shocking. He's done way more than what I have listed here. But of course, he's responsible for Small Soldiers, Jurassic Park, World of Worlds, and so many others. If you go look at his IMDb, it's absolutely insane is what he's responsible for. And he is usually a Steven Spielberg collaborator, worked with Sam Raimi on this, made one of the biggest superhero movies of all time. So shout out to him specifically. Of course, this is our first Sony Pictures movie, which obviously is significant because we'll be talking about that for a while going on this show. Collaboration with Columbia, which, by the way, when I saw Venom the other week and I saw the Columbia logo, I was like, man, I'm brought home. This feels beautiful to see that. Of course, this movie stars Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, James Franco, Willem Dafoe, and many others. Of course, you can stream this film currently on Starz. So Starz has a platform in which you can do their service. And
Maybe not by the time this is out.
That is true. It's a high possibility. I do know that there are some talks, though, that eventually the Spider-Man movies would go to Disney Plus. So depending on when this is out, if that's already happened. But as of right now, they're currently on Starz. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. But if you can give me...
I do want to add...
Yeah, go ahead.
One thing to the history. I'm pretty sure this is the first movie with the Marvel comic opening.
You might be. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that is true. We did not see that in any of the other films. That is very significant. Yeah, okay. Shout out to Spider-Man for including, which became a running theme for many years, and many companies have used it. It's not just Sony. Mm-hmm. It's X-Men used it eventually. The Hulk used it. And literally until I just saw the Venom, I think he used it as well. So yeah, that is significant. Thank you for reminding me of that. That's smart.
Yeah, that was my first note I wrote down. I went, oh my gosh, this is the first Marvel opening.
That is correct. And of course, Sly, if you can, please give us the very wordy plot of this film.
Another thick boy today.
Yeah, I'll try to go smaller next time.
Based superhero character, this is the story of Peter Parker, who is a nerdy high schooler. He was orphaned as a child, bullied by jocks, and can't confess his crush for his stunning neighborhood girl, Mary Jane Watson. To say his life is miserable is an understatement. Side
note, these are pulled from IMDb. Apparently you could be anybody, just write these things, but okay.
Yeah, I have questions for the writers of these.
I have some editorialization, but yes.
But one day, while on an excursion to a laboratory, a runaway radioactive spider bites him, and his life changes in a way no one could have imagined. Peter acquires a muscle-bound physique, clear vision, ability to cling to surfaces, and crawl over walls, shooting webs from his wrists. This person loves ellipses. But the fun isn't going to last. An eccentric millionaire, Norman Osborn, administers a performance-enhancing drug on himself and his maniacal alter ego, Green Goblin, emergence. Now Peter Parker has to become Spider-Man and take Green Goblin to the task, or else Goblin will kill him. They come face to face and the war begins, in which only one of them will survive at the end.
Okay.
I have so many questions.
I love you, IMDb. You brought me so much joy. There was a lot in there.
There was a lot in there. My first note, he becomes Spider-Man way before he has to fight Green Goblin.
Yeah. There's a war? It's more of a scuffle.
Also, muscle-bound physique.
100% you had to put that in there. Yeah. Perform-enhancing drugs. That's also in there.
Yeah, and then my other one is stunning neighborhood girl.
Yeah.
She's his neighbor. They literally live in the house next door.
Yeah.
All right. That's enough of me critiquing the plot.
That was just the plot. That made me laugh so hard. Of course, some of the comic book characters that are featured in this film, of course, are Spider-Man, Uncle Ben, Aunt May, Harry Osborn, Norman Osborn, Mary Jane Watson, J. Jonah Jameson, even J. Jonah Jameson's editor is a character from the comics as well. The receptionist, Betty Brant, who's played by Elizabeth Banks, who's also in this movie, surprisingly. And there is at least if you wanted to see some of your characters come to life, this is a cool movie to see that, to see a lot of these people represented in as equal hair accurate concepts as since the 60s, which is hilarious for J. Jonah Jameson, and even Betty Brant has a very 60s thing going on there, which I think is hilarious. But yeah, that is all the history notes. We're going to go ahead and move on, have a sort of open discussion, a Stanley seminar, if you will. And of course, let's talk about this film. And Sly, what do you think of the film?
This is the first movie that we've done so far that I really felt like it tugged on the heartstrings. Like I was feeling all the feels. I was just all up in it. And I think I've seen this movie before. I don't have a great memory. But Spider-Man as the character tends to be one of the characters that I've really liked all my life. Again, I was a huge DC Comics fan. I was super into the DC characters, but I always really enjoyed Spider-Man as well, especially Spider-Gwen. Like Spider-Gwen is my favorite. I remember I had the 2015 Rodriguez Spider-Gwen comic that I absolutely adored, loved so much. So I've always liked like the Spider-Verse stories. And I think I've seen this movie before, but I did not remember it at all. So I was really excited to really dive into it, really experience all these characters that I've seen in other things in how they were portrayed in this film.
That's true. Cool. The fact that you have all the history, and yeah, I too have a prominent history with Spider-Man. Spider-Man has been a massive part of my life for many, many years. And one of the biggest things about this movie specifically was that when I saw it, I believe it was my grandmother, who has a absolute fondness in my heart, took me to see this. And this was probably one of the last few movies that I got to watch with them. Because roughly at this time, I think she was slowly on the decline. And so I definitely sympathized with everything going on with Peter Parker in this movie specifically. And yeah, Spider-Man, like I said, always been a big part of my life. Joined in when started reading comics when I was about a teenager, but a couple years after this movie, actually, for the Spider-Man Ultimate run before Miles Morales, it was actually Peter Parker, written by Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Bagley, and absolutely adored the character all the way through, all the way up until the introduction of Miles, and the continuation of that was, you know, always spectacular. Played the video games, you know, I've seen every single one of the movies. Absolutely, yeah, massive part of my history, and so to see this film again, and again, the reason why I'm happy that we're talking about it now is because, you know, as everyone knows, if you're watching trailers for anything, that Spider-Man might be coming back in a big bad way with the next Spider-Man film, and will, time willing, of course, and we'll see. And this actually was probably maybe the genesis of why we started the show, or at least why we started talking about it, because that trailer happened. I wanted to watch all of the original Marvel, you know, Spider-Man movies, and I did. I watched all three of them, and they hold up differently in my mind now than they did, you know, even years later, after seeing the third one. And so I'm excited to talk about them as they come along. And I think this is what I brought me. I was like, hey, we need to do a show like this, and I think this will be fun. So again, I owe a lot to this movie, and that is definitely, and I owe a lot to the director as well, Sam Raimi. So yeah, no, this movie holds up so well, to the fact that it's, you know, I think definitely one of the best movies as a complete experience. If I take away my history with the comics, or if I take away the history of knowing things about the comics, just in this movie alone, the characters and where they go, and, you know, where they exchange to, the plot itself, the dialogue, the music, you know, it's as close to a solid movie as a like movie that will live in infamy as one of the best movies of all time in my mind, because of where it is. And yeah, I'm so happy that you got to either see this for the first time, or, you know, have those feelings towards this, because yeah, this movie is still magical.
Yeah. One of the things it does so incredibly well is, if you know the stories, if you know the comics, you know what all the big twists and turns are going to be, and they still hit. They still hit.
Yeah.
And I think that's what impressed me the most, was the Uncle Ben moment hit, the Goblin reveal hit, and I was like, I know what's gonna happen. I know what this arc of this story is gonna be, but it still kept me engaged. I still was so interested in those little details, in those little interactions, and it captured my attention the whole way through. And I thought that was really impressive, that they took the story that I knew all the beats basically of what was going to happen, and still had its hooks in me.
Yeah, it never ceases to entertain me as I was watching it, and hearing all the fun dialogue and the silliness that is along with it, because, you know, Sam Raimi is a director that definitely does a lot of slapsticky stuff in his movies, especially in Evil Dead, and that it holds true in here. Peter Parker gets dunked on quite a bit, but it's fun to watch because of the things that happen, you know, much later about that character. And yeah, you definitely feel for his character and feel going forward. My favorite, you know, this is a fun thing. My favorite depiction of when Uncle Ben dies, which has been done twice now in cinema. And I mean, I haven't seen those Spider-Man movies in a long time, so I'll hold that judgment when we eventually get to that. But for now, the actual depiction of the death of Uncle Ben to me still holds a place in my heart for how sad I was, and how much I felt for the character, and for the mistake that the character makes by letting the guy go through, and how he feels that guilt, and that to me still carries on throughout this movie. You know, do I want to know how he makes that suit? I'm very curious, but
yeah,
but by the way of them waving it away by it being a drawing and it coming to life, you know, I'm okay with it too. But yeah, no, I think
that was one thing. I wanted more science.
Sure.
Out of this, I wanted to see Peter going through the testing and experimenting. I wanted more of that. But I mean, again, we're not going to talk about the Andrew Garfield movies at all, because I have no reference. But I know we've had a Spider-Man origin story done so many times by now, but this was like the first one to really do it, right?
Yes.
And so it was interesting to me what they included and what they didn't. And I think one like thing that I was really sad we didn't have was that like we get the training montage where he's like trying to figure out how to use the webs, which I thought was excellent. I just wanted more of that.
Shazam!
I wanted that with the scene. The Shazam line. Oh my gosh, I lost it. It was so good.
Yeah, there's a lot of great references to other things in these movies, which I think are pretty hilarious. Up and Away Web, which is another good one. But yeah, I just feel like the movie just cares about what it's doing, and Sam Raimi cares about these characters and cares about how to illustrate, and what is the time to make a joke and what time is it to be sad and what time is it to be happy, and it just plays you like a fiddle throughout the whole film. And I love all the characters, even the douchey ones. Like I love Flash Thompson. I just love him in this movie. He's such an asshole.
I have thoughts about Flash in this movie.
Good, yeah, because this is a character that is actually redone 3 times, and I'm excited that we could actually talk about that character.
Yeah, so it was really interesting to me to see what parallels I drew from different like Spider-Man occurrences that I've experienced. Obviously, I've talked extensively about how much I love the Spider-Man PS4 game and the Miles Morales PS5 game. Like, they're like some of my favorite games. And this movie I felt had a lot of influences on the PS4 game. I was getting a lot of similar vibes from that. But with Flash Thompson specifically, I want to talk about this character because his depiction in the MCU and his depiction here are so different. And I thought it was really interesting. And like in this movie, he's just like the classic stereotypical bully. And that's it. That's all you get. Yeah. He's like football, like bully dude. Like that's all you get from him, which is, I don't think we needed more from him here, but it's really interesting to see that contrast with Flash in the MCU, where he's much more developed and he's kind of a jerk, but he's not a bully.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And so, like, I thought that was really interesting because when I saw this Flash, I went, completely different take.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think I'm trying to remember if they established it as a science school in the MCU version or what, or like...
Yeah, it's like Midtown Academy or something.
Something like that, yeah. So there's...
it's like a science... it's like a STEM school.
Got you. So then, yeah, the Flash in that would probably not be in the sports. He would be very similar to where he is. Though they do have sports because they have a gym teacher. Hannibal Buress, so I don't know. Even so,
but Flash is also on the I don't know what they call it. It's the Knowledge Bowl equivalent.
Exactly. So he's definitely like just functionally different, and I think this movie, the 2002 version, is probably the closest to what the comic interpretation was, because that character goes through a lot. I mean, eventually he joins the military and he loses his legs, and he becomes a handicapped character, and then he bonds with Venom at one point, and that's how he gets his legs sort of function. Like it's sort of like a push and pull with Venom. But yeah, I think this interpretation, like I said, is probably the more classic one. I think he serves his purpose, right? He gets his ass beat. At the end of the day, he's still with Mary Jane up to a certain point, until graduation day, which I thought was funny. That's the best day to break up, graduation day.
Right? Yeah.
Did you recognize the actor?
I did not. I'm so bad with faces. You know this.
He is, I think, either married or dating the woman, the Spanish lady from Modern Family. I forgot her name. Vermiga, right? Ooh.
I don't know who either.
Have you ever seen Magic Mike?
No.
That's a movie you need to watch. Magic Mike, specifically Double XL. Right. Double XL is amazing. Oh my God, his name is Joe Maggiano. Oh, did you watch Justice League? Did you see the end credits for Justice League? He was Deathstroke
Gotcha.
Anyways, I didn't rediscover him until he was on True Blood, and he was a hot, like, werewolf dude, and he's like buff and awesome, and he's a nerd. He plays Dungeons and Dragons. He's so cool. Like, I want to hang out with this guy in real life.
For him.
Yes, but he plays like the douchiest Flash. But yeah, you know what? Let's go ahead. We could talk probably a bunch about this movie. We'll talk even more later. But I do want to let's go straight into, because this is the first MCU movie that has counterparts. And like we're saying, we're counterparting right now Flash Thompson. What do you think about this interpretation versus the MCU one that we've come to know with Tom Holland? What do you think of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man?
I thought they were very different Spider-Man. And I like that. I like that they felt very different. One of my big problems with the MCU Spider-Man is he's never really given the chance to exist as his own character.
Sure.
His story is so dependent on Tony Stark's story, and I really don't like that take on his story. I feel like Spider-Man can be such a great independent character, and I feel like they just really tied his story to Iron Man, and I don't think they needed to. And so I really enjoyed seeing this Peter Parker more independent, more able to like be creative and explore like his, abilities and his like emotional maturity. That growth is, pretty isolated and not dependent on another character. And I thought that was really nice to see his character arc independent of like any outside influences, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and I absolutely agree. It's interesting to see them, and I love both. Don't get me wrong. I end up rediscovering how much I love Tobey Maguire watching this again. Is that he has a vulnerability to him that you don't see with Spider-Man in the newer movies, because he's never allowed to. I mean, he's allowed to suffer. Don't get me wrong, but it's always never in the same way. Like, for instance, Spider-Man at a certain point, needs to find a job and needs money, right? And so he has to struggle and he has to do something not so great in order to do so, like which being in the wrestling thing, which causes so much strife in his life. Like, Spider-Man struggles in this movie, and that's something that I think that outside of the villain plot of those, Tom Holland movies, he doesn't really doesn't need to struggle. I mean, he has a wonderful life with his, aunt. The school, for the most part, no one really picks on him other than, Flash Thompson being a jerk, but they're almost like, I don't know. It's weird. It's like,
they're parallels. I would argue that in the MCU, they're parallels, and you see such, you see, like, Flash Thompson's life kind of sucks.
Yeah, 100%.
And so, you understand his motivation a little bit better. And because Peter in the MCU doesn't really struggle at all. Like, he, besides, like, fighting villains, like, that's his only real...
talking to girls, maybe? Like, that's... like...
You can't... Okay, my one problem with, I will say this goes for Andrew Garfield as well.
Sure.
And Tom Holland, they're too hot. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying.
Talking about you,
very hard,
Toby.
It's very hard to pass them off for the nerdy, awkward.
Because
you look at them and they're so conventionally attractive. Yeah. And I'm not saying Tobey Maguire isn't conventionally attractive, because he totally is. But I think they play into that awkwardness, him just like staring at MJ and not answering. They really play out the like socially awkward, like not super comfortable in his body. Like, they really play into that in this movie. And so I
agree with you.
I think that's he's definitely embracing more of the nerdy side of Peter, and I really like that.
Yeah, no, I absolutely like that as well. Some of the other parallels, of course, is Aunt May. Aunt May is very different from the current depiction of. There was it was Hot May. Was that something? Or was,
Hot May, yeah.
Hot May, yeah. So
She is stunning
Oh
in
my
the
God.
MCU. She is very attractive.
I've had a crush on her for years. So yes, when I found out that she was Aunt May, I was just like, okay, I don't believe it, but sure. But yeah, in comparison, what did you think? Obviously, of this Aunt May compared to that one.
I loved Uncle Ben and Aunt May
Yeah.
in this, and I loved getting to see them together, and they were just like when it first opened and I saw Uncle Ben, I went, "Oh no." Because I was like, "Oh, I care so much about him,
I
and I
do.
know where this is going, but I'm just gonna appreciate it." Like they're like so they're just like both of them are so kind and genuine and loving, and getting to see that environment for Peter, and then him being this angsty like teenager who's angry about everything. I thought that was a really nice like contrast between the his environment and his character. And oh gosh, I loved Aunt May and Uncle Ben together so much. They were so cute. Their back and forth, their dialogue was so awesome. And then, later you see Aunt May by herself, and she holds on to that like pure, like caring spirit, and it's just so beautiful.
Yeah, as much as I love Marissa Tomei's just to being in a Spider-Man movie. I gotta still shout out to everyone, and the Aunt May and Ben Parker are just essential, and this depiction of them in this movie, I think, is the warmth and feeling that I think that maybe the Holland movies are missing, because like we said, Tony Stark takes up a lot of the role of Uncle Ben in those films, and I feel like some of that loveliness is missing. Because I'm a huge fan of Aunt May in the Spider-Man game. Spider-Man, she's amazing, and I feel like
Oh yeah.
you kind of miss that in the newer movies, and to have it here, I think is wonderful, because their chemistry together is so sweet, and chemistry with Toby is wonderful.
Can we talk about Harry now?
Yes, let's talk about the Osborns.
I've been
Let's talk about the Osborns.
itching to talk about Harry.
Yes.
So I again will reiterate how much I love Spider-Man PS4 and that game, and Harry's storyline in that game. Oh boy. And so when this like movie started and you see Harry and he looks really similar to him
Yes.
in the video game, and I'm just like, oh boy, I'm not prepared. And I love Harry. I love his depiction here. I just that's it. That's all I have.
When it comes to Harry, because the only he has a parallel in the Garfield films. We'll get there eventually, but he has a parallel only. This is it. This is really the only real major depiction of him in the next, 3 Spider-Man to, Sam Raimi films. And so for him to get his start here, at first I wasn't too sure about him because, I can't tell if he's like one of the popular people that just hangs out with Tobey Maguire, or is he a loser like him? Like he's like
it felt like he was kind of the outcast, and like because he's talking to his father, and he got kicked out of all the private schools.
Yeah.
Right? Because he's like, I don't want to be like the snobby rich kid or whatever. And then he goes to this public school, and all the public school kids hate him because he's rich and snobby.
Yeah.
And so he's just like kind of an outcast, and like becomes friends with Peter because they're both kind of outcasts.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that he's like he's obviously smart. He's intelligent. He could be great if he tried, but he's trying so hard to reject everything his father is.
Yeah.
That he's like, I'm gonna just skate by And yeah.
I agree with that assessment. He's very much skating by in this movie specifically, and for him to be friends, I don't know. He just there's just things about him that I like love, but then there's things like, man, you're a shitty friend. Especially when you like when it comes to like the Mary Jane, because he clearly knows that Peter Parker has it and uses that information that he gets to try and woo her at the museum. And like, well, that's a dicky thing to do. And then later on, it comes later when he is actually dating her.
I think it's such a beautiful depiction of him not really knowing how the world works.
Sure.
And he's so used to getting his way in everything.
Yes.
That he's like, my friend likes this girl, I bet I can get her. And then they start dating, and it doesn't really give the impression that he really cares about her, more the fact that he was able to get her to like him.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. And for everyone that, started this whole trend of like Bella, Edward, Jacob, this was the original Bella, Edward, and Jacob, okay? It was MJ, Peter Parker, and Harry Osborn, okay? Because there's a constant Willy Wonka throughout majority of these films. And this is a fun standing point. But yeah, in terms of his character, you don't get a lot of him in this one, but when he's there, it matters. And I think it matters more in the other movies now that I've, revisit them. And I'm excited to see, that progression again. But yeah, I do think that a lot of things go fast with him, but I still think he's an interesting watch, to say the least. And to have Peter Parker have a friend like him, I think is interesting, because if I put on, I don't even remember the Tom Holland's character's friend's name. I call him Genki, even though he's not Genki.
Ned.
Ned, that's right.
I love Ned.
Ned is a much better friend.
Very different character.
Very different depiction, okay? If we had to compare, they're very different in terms of each other. Like, one's a bro, one's a hoe. But that's still fun to watch regardless,
Absolutely.
Yeah. I want to talk about Norman Osborn. Can we talk about Norman Osborn?
Yes.
William.
Oh my gosh.
William Dafoe, I love you so much. You are so perfect.
So good. Oh my gosh. Okay. So like throughout the beginning of the movie, I was like, wow, it's William Dafoe. He's really good.
Yeah.
And then that scene with the mirror and his facial expressions changing so quickly to change. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
So incredible. The voice, the face, the mannerisms, and you can see it going back and forth in real time. Obviously there were cuts there.
Yeah.
But just it gives that such a fluid progression between the two personalities. So good.
So good, and such an amazing depiction of that sort of psyche breaking thing, using the mirror in the way that it does. I'm very curious about the future depictions in this and how they work in the other films, but that's fine. We're not talking about those yet. But for this movie, 100%, I'm like, it works for me 100% of the time. I love his antagonism towards Spider-Man, him trying to put Spider-Man on his side and having that conversation. Everyone makes fun of that scene of the two people talking where you can't see their mouths moving. They just look like two dolls. But still, I had so much fun watching it again a couple times. It's just you don't see two characters in full costume like that are opposing sides for that long talking. They're usually punching each other all the time.
Yeah.
And obviously Spider-Man can't do anything, but I still think that having that conversation, I think, is awesome. But just every decision they make with that character, every line, I'm trying not to quote him right now, because we have a segment about quoting. But there's so many wonderful lines that he says that I still say today, and they've written themselves into history and will never be forgotten, in my opinion. They're memes. There's just so many gifts of this movie, of just specifically things. William Dafoe is a fucking treasure, and I can't wait to see him back, maybe in the next Spider-Man movie, because that tease, oh my god, did not see that coming. So we'll definitely talk about it. Let's see. Let's talk about Mary Jane. What do you think of Mary Jane? What do you think of Mary Jane?
Talk about Mary Jane.
Yeah.
I thought this is like what I picture as like the classic like Mary Jane. I
Yeah.
think I think they were really going for, you know, the like girl next door, like very attractive, gets all the popular boys. Um, but I was surprised about how much depth they gave her.
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised about how much depth they gave her. I really liked, getting to see the family dynamics between her family and Peter's, and getting to see her and Peter talk and be like her being like, well, your life's great, and Peter's being all like sad and broody. And I just, I love her wanting to be an actor. I think that was really fun. It usually, if she's a journalist,
No.
if no,
She was a model.
no,
So
okay,
the way, so again,
okay.
so to way to like, to way to break down this character, what the original depiction was, at least in the comic book, she was never like the first girlfriend either. There was Betty Brant, that was actually the first one, Gwen Stacy, and then she shows up later, and as someone who was a family friend that Peter didn't even like even remember what she looked like. Like there's actually a comic panel where like a thing's over her face, and when it's removed and you see who she is like, face the tiger, you hit the jackpot. Like that is the big reveal of her saying that. And she was a model in the comics for a while. I'm not so certain what the modern comic accurate, is. So for them to transition that from model to an actress, I think is actually smart. And I love, like you're saying, in terms of like the family depiction of what she's going through and how hard it is for, it's not she is the prototypical, like the girl that everybody wants, the girl next door, but she has her own issues too that she's dealing with, and she, lives on, and that carries on to later too, which I'm very happy about. One of my favorite scenes of all the entire films is them talking to each other in the backyard, them having that dialogue back and forth.
That scene was excellent.
Yeah. It's the quieter moments in the films that to me work so much than even the bombastic parts of it. And when you do them well, they stand out and they make me remember your character. The one thing that I'm going to bring up, and it's because it's a big problem, and I think it became a problem in later movies in general, just movies in general, is I feel like they set up such a strong, interesting woman character that, again, is a love interest, which is back and forth between Harry and Peter, but then using them as the end-all MacGuffin at the end of the film. And spoilers for future movies again and again is a massive problem, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I know it reinforces the themes of the film, but still.
Yeah, I will be interested to see what my thoughts and opinions are on her character development as we see her in the later films in the series. But I think in this movie specifically, the way they used her as the like end like decision, I could accept. I thought that was fine. Okay, this is what we've been building towards. It's all about, Peter's relationships. They're trying to use those to get close to him. It makes sense.
Yeah.
She's still like a pretty strong character in her own right. She's, plenty badass in this movie, but I definitely think my opinion on that will change as I get later in the film.
Yeah, well, it's funny. It's because like I still think those foundations are there, but it's the end result of like, okay, how many times are we going to do this? But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. In this movie, I can accept it because it reinforces the theme at the end and what happens at the end, of course, which is she professes his love to Peter, and Peter rebukes it only because
I can't
risk you being in trouble again because of because I'm in love with you. Like I think that is actually very wonderful for this first movie. And you see her heartbroken in that moment. You see him walking away, not feeling any happier. And I think that is the strongest thing about, I think, maybe even all three movies. But this movie specifically, as we'll focus on this one, yes, I think it is earned in this one. And yeah, I think this is still probably my favorite relationship between all of the depictions of the Spider-Mans. I know that Gwen...
I will have...
Yeah.
I want to tease this. I will have a very spicy take when we get to the Andrew Garfield about relationships. That's all I'm gonna say.
Cool.
If Liz is watching this, Liz started this, and she knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I can't wait to talk about it, but I'll tease that.
For
but
sure.
yeah, I think all of his relationships throughout this film all, end up in the final moment. And you see Uncle Ben, and then you see right after that he kills somebody, right? And that moment was like, oh shit, like what kind of Spider-Man are you going to be?
Yeah.
And then he spends all this time, working to be like a better person, and trying to I feel like he's trying to live up to Aunt May's expectations of him.
Yeah.
That's the vibe I'm getting. And then at the end, of course, he kills Osborn, right? In that huge moment. And then Harry sees him, and then he's all defeated. He's upset with himself. And then you have this big moment from MJ, and he's just like, I can't take this. I can't do this.
Yeah.
After everything that happened to Aunt May, Uncle Ben, Harry hating me, I can't take any more relationships.
A mentor in Osborne, yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, it's funny because I cringed when you said that he killed both of the men, but at the end of the day, he didn't do anything to stop them from dying. He just flips, right? He doesn't stop the glider from hitting him.
Yeah.
And you're right, he doesn't save the guy at the end at all. He just lets him fall, and he doesn't try to do anything. So again, it could just be pure shock, but the fact that he did, it's that inaction causes the responsibility of what you need to be able to do, and I think that carries on. So yes, I can agree with those statements.
And I'm not saying that I think he's
stabbed him in the heart,
responsible for that death, but I'm saying that from the perspective he feels that
I agree
on him.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And that will hold weight until the sequels, of course. I'm actually I'll ask the question here. Does this movie hold up? Is this still worth watching? Sly, what do you think?
I have two moments that don't hold up for me.
Okay.
I will say, in general, absolutely holds up. Absolutely worth watching. I have two moments that I noticed, and I went,
I think I have an idea what one is, because it's a problem that everyone points out. And I do love the meme on it, but go ahead and see. I wonder if we're thinking the same thing.
We'll see. The first one was when he's in the fight with the dude.
Yeah.
And he makes what did your husband make that for you? And I was like, didn't age well.
No. No. Have you seen the meme on that, though?
I have not.
The meme...
I won't say it's horribly egregious. It made me cringe.
There's the meme is it's the same line as did your husband make that? And then there's a whole paragraph of well, yes, he did, and it was a very wonderful gift, and I love him very much.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, taking it back.
I did not like the line.
No, the line is terrible.
Reclaim that shit.
Yes, exactly. Reclaim it for your own. But yeah.
And then the second moment that I was questionable was MJ wearing the kimono to meeting Osborne. And I have no stakes in that. Obviously, I'm very white, right? That's not my place to say whether it was appropriate or not. But I had, at first, when I saw her wearing it, I was like, that's a strange choice. And then when Harry makes a comment about wanting her to look nice for meeting his father, that was the second where I was like, ooh, that really doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah.
Implying that this very nice dress isn't nice enough because it's not what he was expecting.
Exactly.
That was questionable. Again, not my place to say if it was good or bad, but made me cringe a little bit.
Oh, for sure.
Other than that, absolutely holds up. Absolutely worth watching. I had so much fun. I really enjoyed it. It made me feel all the feelings. Like I said, all of those beats, even though I was expecting them, they still hit.
Absolutely. I think that in our Lord 2021, I think that this movie hits even stronger than it did back then, minus obviously the same things that you said, though. 100%. The same things you said are like, that is not cool. But I think that as a movie in its own piece, like I said, take away what you know of the comics and all that knowledge and stuff like that. You can use it as a reinforcement of certain cool things, but I think as a story that they were telling from front to the end, I think they told their story and left enough dangling threads for future movies, but I think completed a arc for the character.
Absolutely.
So yeah, 100% does this movie hold up, and it's 100% still worth watching. Yeah, I think we both agree on that. Sly, do you have any other notes that you have, or did you do everything was said?
I have one more.
Okay.
One of my notes was just, New York is wild. And that was in the bridge scene where he has like the trolley of like all the children, or gondola or whatever it was, and then Goblin's like attacking him, and the New Yorkers just start throwing like fruit or whatever at him. I was just like, man, New York is wild.
It's wild. And they replicate, they replicate that in future films, so which is awesome. So, but
oh boy,
but
I did not wait.
But I love this so much as well. And it's funny. The more that we talk about it, there's so the next moving on, that finishes up our seminar. But we're gonna go into drama class, where we of course are gonna do some quotes from the movie. I'm gonna go ahead and get it off my chest because I really want to say it. You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. Get him, Spider-Man. I just
so good.
So I still say that to this day. Still say this to this day. Okay. So we have a couple we do have a few lines here that I pulled from some of the quotes here. Would you like to tell, this has been a meme for a while. Do you want to tell this Norman Osborn line? It's one of my favorites. Yeah. Go for it.
So Norman talking to Peter. Harry tells me you're quite a science whiz. I'm something of a scientist myself. I was like, yeah, you have a technology company. Yeah, you're a scientist. Like,
yeah. Uh-huh.
All right.
Yeah. I love that people take that and just make that a meme this many years later. It's so good. I'm something of a scientist myself. Do you want to be the wrestling promoter, or do you want to be Peter Parker?
I want to be a Goblin for the next one, so can I be Peter for this one?
Absolutely. Okay. Oh, you should be Goblin. Yeah. You got the best stuff. Okay. Wrestling promoter. After Peter lets an armed man escape with a bag full of cash. You could have taken... Oh, damn it. Hold on. Let me start again. You could have taken that guy a pot. Now he's going to get away with my money.
I missed the part where that was my problem.
It's like cold-blooded. Just starts dancing out the way.
Straight face, walks away. Oh, I love a good callback. Like, that was just...
Yeah. God.
So good.
So good. And I love a good New York accent. So I wanted to do the wrestler promoter. Okay. This
not do an accent to save my life. So.
I love this next segment. Okay. This is more of a dialogue back and forth. This is going to be a bit. So go ahead.
This is basically a scene.
Yeah.
But we're going to do it. All right. So Green Goblin lands in front of Spider-Man on a rooftop. Wake up, little spider. No, you're not dead yet. Just paralyzed. You're an amazing creature, Spider-Man. You and I are not so different.
I'm not like you. You're a murderer.
Well, to each his own. I chose my path. You chose the way of the hero. And they found you amusing for a while. The people of the city. But the one thing they love more than a hero is to see a hero fail, fall, die trying. In spite of everything you've done for them, eventually they will hate you. Why bother?
Because it's right.
Slams his head. Here's the real truth. There are 8 million people in this city, and those teeming masses exist for the sole purpose of lifting the few exceptional people onto their soldiers. You, me, we're exceptional. Grabs his head. I could squash you like a bug right now, but I'm offering you a choice. Join me. Imagine what we could accomplish together. What we could create. Or could destroy, cause the deaths of countless innocents in selfish battle again and again and again until we're both dead. Is that what you want? Think about it, hero. So good.
Love that scene. Love.
I love the monologue.
I guess I didn't put this in here, but it's only because I want to do it. I want, of course, rest in peace, my sweet hero, Macho Man Randy Savage, who makes an appearance in this movie as the wrestler. He has two of the best lines that I still say to this day. He says, "Bonesaw is ready." And of course, "I got you for 3 minutes of playtime."
I do want to comment before we do the last one.
Of course.
But in that whole dialogue back and forth, where he's like, I'm not like you, you're a murderer. That line, hit me. Because I'm like, you sure about that? You don't sound sure about that.
I'm nothing like you. So good. Do you want to nail this last line?
Yes.
Yes.
This, at the very end, wraps it up so nicely. It's so beautiful. It's just like, whatever life holds in store for me, I will never forget these words. With great power comes great responsibility. This is my gift, my curse. Who am I? I'm Spider-Man.
Nails it. Oh,
Nailed it.
so wonderful. Well, that concludes drama class, which we'll be moving on to music room. And this is why the segment was created, because superhero movies of this era are remembered for their original soundtracks. Does the movie music hold up in this movie? And do any songs that are still bangers today? And you ladies and gentlemen and non-binary folks and everyone around the world, yes, this is the reason why this was created, because Nickelback.
Yeah.
Very own Chad Kroeger himself. And there's another guy in the, I forgot what band he was in. I don't care. Hero is one of the best superhero anthems of all time. Still amazing.
Good.
I listened to it last night because I needed to get a pump in. And you know what? I had to put on Hero, and it's still absolutely a banger.
Fucking slaps.
And it comes in during the credits. It's not during the movie. It's only during the credits. And it just, I am so high. Oh, God. Oh, I can feel it in my veins. That's how much I love this song, and how much I associate music with movies. And when I think of Hero, I think of Spider-Man. When I think of Spider-Man, I think of Hero. And it's the fact that it's Chad Kroeger is just icing on the top, because I bet, and I'm a 31-year-old man. I bet if I start listening to some Nickelback, I'm going to be like, you know what? They had some choice songs that are not bad.
I liked Nickelback, especially like in like middle school.
Yeah.
I don't know how old you were when I was in middle school, but I thought Nickelback had some bangers when I was in middle school.
Fair enough. Yeah. So yeah, Hero, again, quintessential song. There is another song though I think that is also really awesome, and this also goes with my love for music videos. Hero also has Spider-Man, like they're like on a rooftop playing, and then like Spider-Man's like swinging around every now and then. But the other song that to me, it's up in my punk rock roots, my Canadian punk rock roots with Sum 41, which has the song What We're All About, which is featured in this movie somewhere. I forget where it was. But yeah, this song is 100% one of my favorites. It has basically the trailer is the music video for the most part, except the band has superpowers and they're playing upside down on the world. So like they're on the ceiling, the crowd's below, and they're like, it's so cool. I love everything about the song and the power of it and the soundtrack. If you go and actually look at the rest of the song list, they're like songs that you associate other places to that are on it too. Like there's a great Hive song on there, which was also like a prominent song. So it's cool that they even had it on the soundtrack. But yeah, these are the quintessential bangers that are still great, which by the way, I mentioned this on our last episode. There is a MC University playlist on Spotify that I've created and curated where I'm including all of these bangers on a list. So that way you can listen to them all together. So yeah.
I might make it for Apple Music as well.
Yeah.
Because
that'd be smart.
It'll be the same thing, but
yeah.
It'll probably be on both Spotify and Apple Music. MC University playlist. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. I agree. We'll try and get that up and running so that way the both are synced together. So that way, no matter what platform you're on, why not enjoy it? But yes, of course, this is, listen to all the music. That's all I got to say. Okay. Well, this concludes Music Room. And moving on to my favorite segment, which of course is quiz time, which I'm going to start for this episode.
I'm actually excited for this one.
I know, it's awesome. I'm going to say it just like my man Macho Man. It's quiz time. All right, let's do it. Of course, what famous director came the closest to making a Spider-Man film before Sam Raimi? Okay. Was it A, Steven Spielberg, which of course Jurassic Park, I'll say some of the movies, so maybe you'll gauge it. So Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, E.T., the bangers. John Woo, who is responsible for the movie Face Off with John Travolta and Nick Cage, Broken Arrow, and Hard Boiled. Okay. James Cameron, which of course is Terminator, The Abyss, True Lies, Avatar down the road. That's what he was responsible for. Brian De Palma, The Untouchables, the Godfather films. These are some pretty big, prolific directors. Which one of them do you think was the closest to making a film before Sam Raimi?
I feel like I'm pretty confident about this. I'm pretty sure it was James Cameron.
You are absolutely correct. It is
right?
James Cameron. James Cameron came the closest.
I don't know why I know that.
I honestly think it's in the ether of time of like people remember there was a huge period of time where James Cameron was about to make the movie, I think with Tom Cruise. I don't remember. There was something going. I feel like Tom Cruise comes up a lot in these discussions because I think he was also up for he was up for Tony Stark at one point. I remember that. But they ended up not going that direction. But yeah, James Cameron, prolific director, obviously went on to do Titanic instead and some other things. And still hasn't made a movie since. So we'll see. But yeah, James Cameron. Number 2, the Twin Towers were featured in the first teaser trailer. True or false?
This movie came out in 2002.
Yes.
Very New York centric. I'm going to say true. I have no idea, but I feel like that would be something that they would have shown off in a teaser trailer for this movie.
They did. They showed it off in 2001. They showed off that it was the image is, I think, criminals. I'll maybe I'll show you the trailer later, but basically they're like in a helicopter and a giant web captures the helicopter and the web is in between the Twin Towers, which is like, of course, because that was the teaser trailer, they obviously removed it, and the Twin Towers are actually removed from the film as well. So they are not.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't notice them in the movie at all.
Yeah, they are not in the film either. So that is, you are 2 for 2 right now. Let's see here. I could have swore I had a fourth or fifth question, but real quick. Does Stan Lee have a cameo in this movie?
Yes, he does.
Yes, he does.
Yes, he does. He's in that first fight with Green Goblin.
Mm-hmm.
There's that like little girl, and he like grabs her, and I was like, "That's Stan Lee."
He's his own hero, which I was very happy about.
So excited to see him.
Yeah, it's such a. This is I think his second appearance so far on our show that has a cameo, and yeah, you're absolutely right. He is saving that little girl, which is so good. I think he actually there are deleted scenes that do feature more of him. I think he has a line, but they cut it down to just him saving the girl, which that's fine. That's perfectly all you need. And so that concludes quiz time. You won. You know, I could have swore I did better.
I did it.
Yeah, I could have swore I had more questions, but if that's not the case, you did it. You 100% aced this test.
It's fine.
And
it's a nice balance compared to last week where I did very poorly.
Yes. Some softballs. Why not? The first question's hard and you nailed it, so good for you. So that concludes quiz time. Of course, we are wrapping up school for the day. We're going to go head to our homerooms. And just any final thoughts you want to leave on this film?
I just want to check my notes. I have a note that just says, "Don't yell at him, sad face." What is this? Oh, this was in the car with Ben and Peter. And Peter's like, "You're not my dad." And I was like, "Don't yell at him."
That's the last thing you're going to say to him.
Yeah, and then that comes back later where he was like, the last thing I ever said to I loved this movie. I really, really enjoyed this movie. I'm so glad we have this show. I feel like I say that every week because it makes me appreciate these movies so much more. And I'm so excited to get more Spider-Man. I haven't watched any of the I don't think I've seen the rest of these series, and I haven't seen the Andrew Garfield movies in ages, and I'm not gonna watch them until I watch them for the podcast.
Okay.
And so like I'm itching for more because I love Spider-Man, I love his stories, and I can't wait to see more of this character in movies. And of course, when we eventually get to see
No Way Home?
the next No Way Home, right?
Yeah.
The naming questions I have.
Yeah, because it's
questions.
Homecoming, Far From Home, No Way Home. No Way Home. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No Way Home. So yeah, I think I've gotten all my thoughts out on this movie.
Good. I wanted to give you that final chance. Of course, yes. This is one of the quintessential superhero movies that not only broke boundaries in terms of the box office. I think if this is the first superhero movie to reach over $100 million at the box office, which of course became the trend that if you're a successful movie, you have to somewhat cross this threshold, which is either a good thing or a bad thing. But at the very least, there was something there about this character. His character resonates within all of us, and I think this movie is a wonderful depiction of that character and where we got forward to. So yeah, I think I pretty much exercised everything that I have had to say, and really hope people give this another shot. For people that are absolutely love Tom Holland's and consider that to be the only depiction in their minds, at least give this one another watch. I think it's absolutely worth your time. So I think
yeah. All of the depictions have something about them that makes them special and unique. And I think it's important to cherish all of the depictions because they're all at least good.
Yeah. Yeah,
from
100%.
what I remember. They're all at least good. And so, you can have your favorites, but I think revisiting all of these depictions and seeing what they do differently and really cherishing that is so important.
Absolutely. The one thing, obviously, before we go, we have to do some homework. I forgot about letting tell anybody in the last episode that you need to see Spider-Man, but
oh shoot,
I assume you understood that Spider-Man would be next, or at the very least. We'll let you know. We'll hopefully let you know by then. But your homework for this week, and I'm very excited about this one because I've not revisited it in a very long time. And we can definitely, this is another one where we can compare to the MCU, the extended MCU, and maybe has a return in the Spider-Man movie. Who knows? Who knows if these rumors are correct? But we get to see Ben Affleck as Daredevil. So we are moving into 2003 Daredevil. Very excited.
Boy.
I'm going to say, because I don't know where we can stream. I haven't looked to see where we can stream this yet. I'm assuming it's somewhere not hard to find. I would aim for the director's cut version because apparently it's better. Okay. So we'll try to go for that one. Because I haven't seen it, so I'm very curious what's majorly different. But yeah, we're going to be watching Daredevil. No, Sly, where can we find you?
Okay. You can find me pretty much everywhere on the internet at SlyCloneMC. If you want to see more of me talking about Marvel, be sure to check out Stark Radio on Twitch and YouTube for the Hawkeye After Party. I will be co-hosting that and, chatting with Liz about all things Hawkeye.
Fantastic. Of course, you can find me at Night Mute City on Twitter, over here at Pip, where we, of course, have our podcast, where we go live every Friday, and we release the podcast as a 2-part video on our YouTube channel, and is obviously on all of the audio programs that you can find it on, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere else. And yeah, I think that's where you'll be able to find us. And until next time, class is dismissed.
In this lab, we have 15 genetically enhanced super spiders.
There's 14. One's missing.
Peter, are you all right? I'm fine.
Pete, look, you're changing. I know I went through exactly the same thing at your age.
No, not exactly.